middle school language arts teacher and author of the Lucia Chronicles. This is a YA book review of Magonia by Maria Dahvana Headley. Not sure if I'm saying her name right, but here is the cover of this book. The cover is really what grabbed me. Again, in my last video, The Haven, talked a little bit about the blue and orange contrast, which is complementary colors that if you study cover design at all, then you know that they are really eye-grabbing colors. And in the reviews I saw for this book, a lot of people were also grabbed by the awesome cover. So I'm going to read my review to you. As you know, if you've watched my other reviews, I like to read my review and then I copy it into the comments below, only because I like to get my thoughts on paper and don't like to make mistakes. Well, try not to make mistakes. Nobody's perfect. So, Magonia is a YA fantasy with loose roots in sky mythology. Magonia is a sky city with sightings being recorded as early as the 1600s. The Magonians create storms as camouflage for their crop-stealing ways, a lifestyle adapted because of the human destruction of Earth. This concept makes up the secondary plotline of Magonia. The primary plotline revolves around Aza and her best friend potential romantic interest, Jason. Aza has an unknown disease that makes air her enemy. Her mother's a scientist who works secretly to try to cure her, and her father tries to make her laugh. Her sister Eli acts like she hates having the sick girl for a sister. The family dynamics are spot on, and there's also a bit of diversity with Jason having two moms. Aza has already outlived the doctor's predictions of her demise, but right before her 16th birthday, she dies. Only she doesn't. Aza finds herself in Magonia, where she has no trouble breathing the air and finds herself on a ship surrounded by bird people. Only, just as on Earth, Magonia has its own problems, the least of which is the breath, and maybe more so Aza's pirate mom Zal, who she's been newly reunited. Aza tries to reconcile her Earth existence and her love for Jason with her new life as a powerful Magonian partnered with shipmate Di since her birth. Magonia is a fantastical, otherworldly Pirates of the Sky adventure, but its true shining star is the human relationships. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing the names right. I'm just going with it. That's how I read them in my head. Overall, on Goodreads, I gave this book 4 stars. I think the average is like 3.5 or so. Some people gave it really low ratings. Obviously, some people completely loved it. I fell more into the love it side. However, there were things that I think could have been improved and that there were some things that took getting used to. So for me, pluses were the awesome cover and the Earth characters and their relationships. You know, Aza is sick and Jason has his own issues. He has some anxiety issues and he's incredibly intelligent. But their dynamic with each other, I think, is believable and realistic and enjoyable. Some cons are that the style of the narrative is kind of stream of consciousness, and if you don't know what that is, that's a literary device where you literally are writing what you're thinking. And so we're kind of really into Aza's head. And that can be a bit difficult at times because she's really snarky and a bit bitter, and kind of rightfully so, considering that she has a disease that's actually named after her and no one knows like what's causing it. We do find out the roots of that disease later in the story, but she has, you know, some terms that she uses like sick girl privileges or dying girl privileges and things like that. And a lot of people on Goodreads, when I look through the reviews, had mixed feelings about that. I think she's just a snarky kind of insert word here character, and it took a while to get to like her because at first she doesn't seem likable, but then you realize that it's a defense mechanism, so then she becomes a bit more likable when you realize that. Also, the world building when you actually get into Magonia. So I actually googled Magonia and it's a real thing, but then the author just kind of took it in her own direction, and it's very discombobulated, and that was another thing that people gave it poor reviews for, or average to lower reviews for, is because there's these awesome like bird people that live in the sky, and sometimes it's really hard to picture it in your head, or terms are mentioned and they're not fully described or defined, or they're mentioned and then they're not defined until much later in the story. I really liked the ending of the book. I'm not sure if it's necessarily realistic, but considering that the majority of this book is fantasy, I kind of don't expect it to be realistic. Also, the climactic point, I actually predicted what was going to happen, and that's kind of rare for me. I like to be surprised, or I like for my prediction to be partially true, but my prediction was completely correct. So I don't know if there was too much foreshadowing of that coming, and so it wasn't quite as surprising for me, but I love the concept of it, and even with the lack of descriptions, I'm very imaginative, so I could really picture it in my head, and I could see it totally translating into a movie. So I enjoyed it. Like I said, it took some getting used to because the writing style is a little bit harsh, I guess you could say, in the beginning, and the character's a little bit harsh, but then you kind of peel away the pieces like an onion, and you get to know her better and see why she is the way she is, and can you really blame her? So overall, I liked Magonia, and I plan on reading the second book, which comes out, I think, later this year. It's called Ari, I think, Aerie. So, like I said, I'm not sure about the pronunciations of some of these things, which is something I run into with fantasy. I just decide how to pronounce it in my head and run with it. Same thing with my own sci-fi fantasy books that I write. You know, I pronounce a name one way in my head, and then my dad talks to me about it, and he has a different pronunciation. I'm like, that's not how you say it. So hopefully I'm saying these names correctly. Hopefully I've got the author's name correct. Overall, I gave Magonia 4 stars. The cover's what drew me in. So the cover's definitely a 5. The characters are about a 4, at least the earthbound human characters are about a 4, and the ability to solicit emotion. I cried, oh, I didn't cry, I teared up a couple of times throughout the book. So I think that's a 4 to the elicit of the human emotion. And then I would say that some of the world building is about a 3, so it could be better and more descriptive. So overall, I gave the book 4 stars. So Magonia is the name of this book, and you should check it out and let me know what you think. Do you give it a 4, or did you give it a 5, or did you think it wasn't deserving of that kind of rating? So let me know in the comments if you've read this book or plan on reading it. And you can check me out on Instagram at JenniferLK427. I'm trying to build up a predominantly book-based bookstagram. So follow me on there, and I will follow you back. In the meanwhile, happy reading and happy writing.